This tropical disturbance is showing signs of life in the eastern Caribbean. We'll talk about the areas it's impacting right now and how it could develop down the road. Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back at Meteo Mundo. Great to see you on a Monday. Happy Labor Day to those who observe. Coming up in this video, we're going to get into our disturbance in the eastern Caribbean. It has brought some hazardous conditions to portions of the Lesser Antilles and Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, areas like that on this Monday. Still a decent chance of development down the road as it moves across the Caribbean. And then we'll discuss the other areas of interest as well. You know, I love to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comment section what's been going on, what the weather has been like in your area on this Monday. We'll get started here, and we're just going to kind of start south to north. Now, again, not expecting this to develop in the next couple of days. That's why this orange area doesn't begin until we get into almost the western Caribbean. But it's still a disturbance with some gusty winds and some heavy rain. It's led to some localized flooding in some areas as well. So here's what's been happening. Again, we had the main impacts for most of the Lesser Antilles late last night through early this morning. There are still waves of rain and storms moving across the islands right now. Trinidad, Tobago, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados, St. Lucia, Martinique, where we had a 30-mile-an-hour wind gust. I told you in yesterday's video, expected 15 to 30-mile-an-hour winds with some higher gusts and maybe 2 to 4 inches of rain, 50 to 100 millimeters. We've had that in some locations. We've had some flash flood and we've even had some mudslides as well. So again, for the Lesser Antilles, there will still be some rain and storms on this Monday afternoon, but it will begin to taper off tonight as the axis of thickest moisture moves off towards your west. So kind of the last gasp, if you will, of this disturbance clinging to your area here for the next few hours and things get better. We get up towards Dominica and over to our friends in Guadeloupe. And again, decent wind gusts here, 28-mile-an-hour wind gust up in the Guadeloupe area. And we've continued to see waves of rain move across this area. Again, not extremely concentrated, but there's some. Montserrat, Antigua with a 25-mile-an-hour wind gust. Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, Montserrat, St. Eustatius, Saba, St. Bart's 28-mile-an-hour wind. Same thing for St. Martin and Anguilla. Again, deep moisture kind of beginning to move out of the area. So we transition to the heaviest rain beginning to now get over the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, and Haiti. And again, the winds are beginning to freshen up now as well. Wind gusts of over 30 miles an hour in St. Croix, near 30 in St. Thomas, Fajardo, San Juan, over 30-mile-an-hour winds. The interesting thing is we've had some very heavy rain, right? We've had some mudslides reported in portions of Puerto Rico earlier on this Monday. And then the sun came back out and Ponce's feels-like temperature hit 122 degrees Fahrenheit or 50 degrees Celsius. So you've had the waves of rain and then the sun came back out and it got really, really hot. But now that tropical moisture is beginning to settle back in. This is the live look out of the radar here out of southeast Puerto Rico. Again, scattered showers will continue to move across places like St. Croix in the Christiansted area, all the way up towards Anegada and Virgin Gorda and Tortola and Joost Van Dyke, St. John, St. Thomas, Culebra, Vieques. 25 to 30-mile-an-hour winds from time to time and even some locally higher gusts, some downpours, some good thunderstorm activity right over San Juan and Bayamon right now towards Dorado, moving off towards the Arecibo area, which has already had some heavier rain there. Central sides of the island, we had a really nasty storm just come offshore of western Puerto Rico, Aguadilla on over towards Mayaguez, now over the Mota Passage. This is moving west towards the Punta Cana, La Romana areas. Again, 1 to 3 inches of rain, locally higher amounts and even some mudslides have been reported in portions of Puerto Rico. And additional heavy rain is likely here through the rest of this afternoon, tonight, and even portions of our Tuesday as well. So some areas could get more than 4 inches of rain before it's all said and done. And again, this disturbance is not going to develop into a depression or a tropical storm. It is just an elongated axis of very heavy moisture and some gusty winds. It's obviously kicked up surf and sea conditions as well. The rain is beginning to overspread Hispaniola, especially on the Dominican Republic side, beginning to work its way into Haiti. But Santo Domingo, Punta Cana, Samana, Santiago de los Caballeros, Puerto Plata moving north and west towards the Turks and the Caicos and the southeast Bahamas. Good slug of moisture here. It's fading a bit. Additional storms are developing near the center of circulation and getting back to that. This is about as healthy as this disturbance has looked with the convection, the thunderstorm flare up here. Now, we still don't have a low-level center of circulation, okay? But it's beginning to look a little bit more impressive on satellite imagery on this Monday afternoon. Still don't feel like, more than likely, we're going to be talking about something that develops quite rapidly, all right? Still fighting some drier air, and the organization just overall isn't fantastic, but it's healthier than what it has been. And that's why the Hurricane Center still keeps this 40% chance. And, you know, if this continues, the trend continues, that number is going to get higher overall as well. So let's break down kind of, again, what's going on right now. Then we'll get into the forecast of that disturbance. So for the Lesser Antilles for tonight, the rain is going to begin to taper off. The disturbance is moving off towards the west. You're still going to see 15 to 25 mile an hour winds and some higher gusts. And again, rainfall totals that were relatively good. For Puerto Rico, the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, the Dominican Republic, and Haiti tonight and tomorrow, 2 to 4 inches of rain, and that should say 50 to 100 millimeters. Apologize for that. So 2 to 4 inches, 50 to 100 millimeters, but there are locally higher amounts expected. We've already had some localized flooding and some mudslides, especially once this rain sets in over portions of Puerto Rico and Hispaniola. Some higher terrain there in the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Got to watch out for the mudslides. 15 to 30 mile an hour winds and some locally higher gusts that come along with it as well. Friends, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for taking a quick second. Fast payback, just hitting that like button for me. Thank you so much. Thank you for subscribing to Meteo Mundo. You're looking for these tropical updates in your daily forecasts across the Caribbean and the Bahamas. Thank you for sharing this with your family, friends, anyone you think will get something out of it. And of course, finding ways to support me here at the channel via the membership, the super thanks, and through the description below as well. All right, so we're going to deep dive into what's coming up with this storm in a minute. I do want to touch on the rest of the forecast here across our area on this Monday. We'll start off in Jamaica. A couple of scattered showers trying to develop, but it's been a relatively quiet day as far as that goes so far. Rain chances will obviously improve as we get deeper into the week as this activity from this disturbance begins to move off towards the west. We've had a few showers and storms try and develop towards the Cayman Islands today, especially towards Grand Cayman. A lot of that is back off towards our north and west because, again, we still have this area in the northwest Gulf. It's not going to develop, but it is actually throwing some moisture around it, and you're starting to see thunderstorms really pick up over western Cuba and portions of the Yucatan again, and this is diving back down towards right across the coastline, Cancun, Cozumel, Tulum, even towards Merida over there, down towards Chechbal, Orange Walk, and Belize. And again, we'll talk more about this orange area coming up, which is the development zone of that disturbance, I promise. But in the short term, it's going to get wetter and stormier through most of the Yucatan, Belize, Guatemala. Some of that will try and sneak into the northern sides of Honduras as well, Roatan, San Pedro Sula areas, and then develop and move inland as well. So scattered showers and storms there. Cuba will have the best chance for storms on the western side of the island, but scattered storms continue to develop across the islands as well. Relatively quiet day for the central and the southeast Bahamas. Few storms getting going right now in the northwest Bahamas. You can see those just developing at the hour. Hasn't been a ton. Let's take a look at the radar here real quick. Throw off the satellite data here. Hasn't been a lot of rain, but again, it is trying to drift up towards the north right now. So showers and storms developing, trying to lift up to the north. So pockets of heavier rain. Watch out for a little bit of lightning. You can see the lightning count here, but most of that is over Florida rather than the Bahamas. I do want to take a second for our friends in the Bahamas to acknowledge that this is the 5-year date of Hurricane Dorian back in 2019. Hurricane Dorian was an absolutely destructive hurricane, especially over the Abaco Islands and Grand Bahama. It was a Category 5. Winds hit 185 miles an hour, gusts to 220 miles an hour, and the eye wall of Dorian sat over portions of Grand Bahama for nearly a day. 22 hours in some spots. It was an utterly devastating storm. Impacts can still be seen today. And for anyone who was impacted by that storm, our thoughts are with you guys. Again, 5 years ago today is when Dorian crept across Grand Bahama. This is just one of those shots from the Bahamas. I could have shown you a lot of different pictures and they all look the same. The amount of rain and the storm surge going over 2-story homes was unprecedented. We hope to never see it again, but obviously Dorian, a very impactful storm for portions of the Northwest Bahamas 5 years ago. And our thoughts are with our friends there. Okay, back over to the forecast right now. Let's get into it. Now we're going to deep dive into what's happening with this disturbance. And there is another one in the eastern Atlantic that I'll touch on here in a minute as well. But the first thing I want to do, we'll switch over to the GFS model, and we're going to take a look at the deterministic reflectivity, meaning, again, what is the model showing as far as movements and strength and all of that. Then we'll look at the ensemble members of the GFS, again, off of that deterministic model, and then the European ensemble members as well. See how much agreement there is, see how much disagreement there is. Again, at this point in time, 40% chance of development down the road from the National Hurricane Center. That's that area in orange. Notice it has shifted farther off towards the west. It now goes into the southwest Gulf of Mexico. So at this point in time, despite the fact that this disturbance looks better in the short term, the Hurricane Center still doesn't feel like it's going to try and develop until near Jamaica as we get into the next couple of days. Okay, so let's bring this back out to today, the 2nd. And again, this is the GFS model. So we'll note that we'll continue to still see some rain for the Lesser Antilles. And then tomorrow, right, let me back this up again very quickly here. It'll slip through our Tuesday, but fairly quickly, we'll still have some passing showers and storms for Puerto Rico and Hispaniola, the Dominican Republic, and Haiti. A lot of the deepest moisture should actually stay south of those islands, all right? So as we get into our Thursday, the 5th, now we could start to see more direct impacts for Jamaica, okay? Now this still may not even be a depression, but the heavier rain and the gusty winds will begin to move into Jamaica forecast probably as early as late Wednesday night, but more than likely on Thursday, all right? And again, the GFS does begin to ramp this up a little bit more, and you can see this just kind of expand a little bit too as we get into Friday, the 6th, for the Cayman Islands, for portions of Central America, including Nicaragua and Honduras. And then the GFS does fairly follow, okay, the formation zone from the Hurricane Center and tries to bring this into Central America or the Yucatan. Let me take this out a little bit farther. What do you say we go out a couple more days? Just wanted to get us that far out. So again, late Wednesday, Thursday, potential beginning impacts for Jamaica, and then throughout the day Thursday into the Cayman Islands, portions of Central America as we get into Friday and Saturday and the weekend, all right? This is a relatively west track overall, rather than that recurve north between Cancun and Cuba. The GFS does try and take this into, let's say, Guatemala or Belize or the Yucatan, and then into the southwest Gulf of Mexico, which follows the formation zone from the National Hurricane Center. All right. So again, you can see it beginning to wrap up a little bit more here very clearly. Now, obviously, going over the Yucatan is going to have impacts. If this storm has not really gotten going, that kind of land interaction could really knock it back down very quickly. We're going to take a look now at the GFS model, surface winds. So same model, we were looking at rain, now we're looking at winds. And obviously you should expect some fairly hefty rainfall totals as this disturbance moves off towards the west. Now in the short term, that's going to be kind of in the central sides of the Caribbean, where even the ABC Islands probably miss the bulk of the heaviest rain, but get some passing showers out of this, all right? Now, we'll start to see that wrap up occur just before it gets towards the Yucatan. On the GFS, it still really hasn't gotten its low-level act together over Jamaica, all right? Still, again, could be some gusty winds, not ready to talk about how strong those winds could be because development could still happen near Jamaica, but just on the latest run here of the GFS, we're looking at it potentially happening a little bit closer to the Yucatan, and you can see that as those winds begin to freshen up. There's the interaction right over the Yucatan, but all of these winds here are going to be 20 to 30 miles an hour with some higher gusts. And it's just, do we get a low-level center of circulation there before it moves over the Yucatan or not? Or does it bend north and west, missing the Yucatan, and get into the Gulf of Mexico with the core staying over water? That is still a possibility as well. So let's break down, and then we're going to get into the models, kind of what we know. 40% chance of development as it moves across the Caribbean. If you live in these areas, you don't have to take any action as of yet. Monitor. Always check in with your local government and your local officials for timely, important local information. But if I lived in these areas, I would just be keeping a very close eye. Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, Cuba, Honduras, Guatemala, Belize, and the Yucatan Peninsula in general. Okay? And even if you live farther south in Central America, you want to keep an eye on things as well, but I don't expect the core of that storm to move into your area, but there could still be some very heavy rain. So now we'll look at the European ensembles, okay? So we looked at the GFS deterministic, now this is the European ensembles, all right? Kind of catching the end of the run here. I'm going to let it move through and then we'll get into it. Notice as we go through tomorrow and Wednesday, we see nothing as of yet, okay? If you start to look down towards Jamaica, Thursday, that's the first little sign here of development, but just like the GFS, man, it's not until it almost moves on shore, either into Central America or the Yucatan, that it tries to wrap up, would obviously be impacted by the land interaction, and then potentially trying to get stronger in the southwest, west, potentially the northwest Gulf of Mexico. So again, European ensemble members, next couple days does not have a low-level center of circulation. First signs might be late Thursday as it passes Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, but then more signals here. And again, we are continuing to back this up in time because the wave has really struggled. And there's no indications right now that it's just going to snap its finger to get going. Now, it looks better, right, on satellite data than what it has been, but it's still got some, things to check, some boxes to check before we have ourselves a tropical depression. GFS, there you go. Still notice there are a few members to the east, but the majority of those have more direct impacts for the Yucatan into the western Gulf of Mexico. Once again, Tuesday into Wednesday into Thursday, not much. We're picking up one signal there near Jamaica. But again, things look a little bit more prominent as we get west of Jamaica, closer to Belize and the Yucatan, and Guatemala and Honduras. Again, potentially more of a quicker north turn, but more of the ensemble members have it traversing into the southwest side of the Gulf of Mexico. When we look at the rainfall totals, as I mentioned, very healthy rainfall totals here. So we've already had some very heavy rain in the Lesser Antilles. We'll get more for the U.S. and British Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, more for the Dominican Republic and Haiti, Cuba, Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, the Yucatan, Central America down the road, but look at all of that. Also note the disturbance in the Northwest Gulf, which is not going to develop, is still flooding portions of upper Texas and coastal Louisiana, and that will track north and east, and we could actually have some very heavy rain over the northern Gulf Coast and right up the east coast of the United States as well. As far as winds and waves, as for our boaters, just be cautious out there, guys, especially again, anywhere near this disturbance. You've already seen those fresh 15 to 30 mile an hour winds. We're gonna have some long period swells from time to time as well, especially on the eastern sides of the islands. I know that Barbados actually had some swells on the western side of the island today, so it is somewhat area dependent, but generally speaking, again, if you're in the Atlantic exposed waters or even on the eastern side of the Caribbean islands, just be quite cautious out there. Some surf and sea conditions will be elevated over the next several days. So back over to our weather computer here, because I do want to talk about this other disturbance. Now look, the one that was west of here is basically already gone. This is one that just came offshore, and it already has a 40% chance of development, all right? Big cluster of thunderstorms already beginning to kind of consolidate. This certainly looks healthy. This is a much more typical tropical wave for early September coming off the West African coast. I want you to note, though, that already the development zone is fairly far off to the north and west, meaning it's gaining latitude very quickly. So if I go back over to the GFS model here, give me just 1 second to bring back up the reflectivity, and I won't have to go as far out in time here, but we'll go out a couple days just to show you that with this disturbance, it's already trying to gain latitude. All right. I'll keep a close eye on it for you, but the fact that it's already going that far north and west is a good sign that hopefully this just stays a fish storm. But already a 40% chance of development with that one to monitor. But obviously the big story right now, friends, is the active weather for our eastern areas the potential development over the next few days in the central and especially the western sides of the Caribbean, some of the heavier rain. And again, does this become a depression, a storm, or does it just stay an open wave and just brings us heavy rain and storms? All that to be determined. But there are indications, again, that we're going to have some further development down the road. It does look better right now with much more convection and storms near the center of circulation than what we've had over the last previous days. Friends, I appreciate you guys following us across all social media. Really appreciate you guys finding us on TikTok. We've had some tremendous growth there. We're Meteo Mundo on TikTok, My Meteo Mundo on Instagram, at Meteo Mundo X. We've got a Facebook page. If you want to send me a picture or video, it's mymeteomundo@gmail.com. As always, you have a specific question about the forecast, drop it in the comments section below. Thanks again for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Appreciate that support. And again, let me know in the comments section below how you guys are doing. Have a great rest of your Monday. I'll be back tomorrow with the latest right here at Meteo Mundo.